Hi, my name is Richard Balsley, and I'm a modern workplace or a modern classroom technical specialist focusing on Windows, Azure Active Directory, and Microsoft Intune for the U.S. Education Organization here at Microsoft. And today we're going to talk about how to repackage complex installers for Windows 10 modern deployments. Now, before we get into that, we really need to talk about what deployment before modern management looks like. And this is, quite frankly, what you're probably doing today, but you're also looking at moving towards managing your devices in the cloud. Well, before modern management, what we would typically do when we were deploying applications or when we were setting up a brand new device that we were provisioning is that we would download vendor-supplied software. And this could be traditional apps that are in most images like Adobe Acrobat, Adobe Flash. You might have some different web browsers. And all of these applications generally are single file MSIs or executables. However, sometimes these applications could be multiple files or folders. If you use the Adobe Creative Suite, you probably are used to seeing a folder with a number of files in it. And generally there's a setup executable that is called, and then you pass a silent switch for that setup executable to go ahead and install the bulk of that package to get the application installed on the device. So you would download this file or these files, and then you would import them into a management tool. And this could be System Center Configuration Manager, or this could be some other third-party management tool. In some cases, you may actually repackage these applications into a single file MSI, or you might do something else with them. But generally, once they're imported into some management tool like SCCM, when you create your image or you are ready to deploy an image to a device, you will generally have applications inside of a task sequence. And that task sequence will include your operating system, which in this case would be Windows 10. But then it would also include Adobe Creative Suite. It could be Adobe Acrobat. It could be a number of other applications. So we'll integrate that application into the task sequence, and then we'll deploy that task sequence out to a collection. Once it's been deployed, this then gives you the opportunity to either PXE boot, so you can install directly from the network, or you might use boot media on a USB stick, pop that into the device, and then image the device over the network. This is generally how most environments will image devices if they're using some sort of third-party management tool. Others might be using tools like Ghost, or you could be using an image that you have captured using SysPrep or DISM and have that image you'd have a fat image that's on a USB stick or on some form of media that you're using and replicating that to a number of different devices. But when we use modern management in Windows, modern management really relies on us leveraging the operating system that comes on the device. So you would purchase a brand new device from your vendor or from your reseller, and we'll keep the existing installation of Windows on that device. We don't want to touch it because having to do that generally requires us to wipe the entire device and put the operating system on it that we want, that has our custom applications and custom settings and everything all customized. But the problem with doing that is that it takes a lot of time to customize that image. So instead, if we keep the existing installation of Windows on the device, we then have the ability with modern management to use a provisioning package to onboard the device to Azure Active Directory, and then install applications, if necessary, directly from that provisioning package. Now, in some cases, your applications might be small. They could be single file MSIs that we can deploy directly through an MDM. In this case, this would be Microsoft Intune, or it could be a third-party MDM. So this gives us that capability of managing that device directly from the cloud and automatically enrolling it into Intune. Now, we do have some considerations or some issues that we have around applications, and that's the whole point of this video, is really going into how we can take complex installers that are generally legacy Win32 applications. We can take those and convert them or repackage them so that they can be installed either during the provisioning process or during once the device has been enrolled into Microsoft Intune, the application can then come down from there. But one of the problems that we have with Microsoft Intune is that Intune does not support deploying executable-based installers or any exe-based installers, or installers that have multiple files or folders, which often we see customers have at least one or two of these apps in their environments. Now, provisioning by itself, through a provisioning package, we can run arbitrary commands. So we can run an installation of an executable or MSI file. We can also run any batch scripts or any CMD files that you have created. We can also run PowerShell or VB script. Really anything that can run from the command line, we can run out of a provisioning package. But the problem, though, is that if you've ever tried to integrate a package that includes multiple files or folders inside of Windows Configuration Designer, it gets really complex when trying to do this. And then large applications delivered from the cloud can be expensive from both a time as well as a bandwidth perspective, because if you have an application that is a gig in size, that application obviously has to be downloaded and installed on the device, and that all takes quite a bit of time. So the solution in this case is to repackage your complex applications. Now, normally when we talk about repackaging these applications, you might think of using tools like Admin Studio or maybe some other MSI repackaging solution where you'd stand up a reference gold machine, and then that machine would just have Windows on it, nothing else. You would then install whatever repackaging tool you're using. In this case, it could be Admin Studio. And then you would turn that application on and you would allow it to basically watch you install the application that you are trying to repackage. Once that process is done watching all of the different changes that are being made, and this would be files being copied to the disk, it'll also be changes to the registry. Once these things are all done, then this will output a single MSI file or a package for you to then deploy to whatever, either deploy to or deploy with whatever solution that you're currently using to manage your devices. Well, we're not really going to do that in this scenario because that process generally takes quite a bit of time, and there's a lot of trial and error in making sure that the repackaging gets just right. So when we're talking about complex applications, what that really means is applications that contain multiple files and folders. And what this can mean is just a single file or a single additional file. So what that would mean is two files in one folder. If you think of Office 365 Pro Plus Click to Run, that includes a setup.exe, and it also includes an XML file that has configuration settings for how you want to install Office 365. When I go through the demo, I'm going to show you exactly how we could repackage Office 365 into a single installation file. And just know that this isn't the best way of doing things, but it is one possible way for you to repackage Office 365. And then apps that are single file, and they're single file executables, will either need to be repackaged into an MSI or they'll need to be deployed via a provisioning package. The reason why you would need to repackage a single file exe into an MSI is only if you wanted to deploy that directly from Microsoft Intune. If you're okay with taking that exe and putting it into a provisioning package, then by all means go ahead and do that. Not a huge deal. But large applications should really be provisioned into a provisioning package to save time and bandwidth. It doesn't make a lot of sense to take a 1 gig package and put it up in Microsoft Intune and then deploy that over the internet, having to wait for the download and then obviously wait for the installation of that. If you're trying to onboard a user quickly, having to wait for these large 1 gig plus applications from the cloud definitely will take quite a bit of time. Many repackaging solutions are available, both free and paid. I mentioned Admin Studio before. There is a free version of that. But there are many paid solutions out there from both Wise and Admin Studio and various others that you can use. But what I will be showing is how we can leverage 7-Zip, which is a freeware utility that many people use today, that actually allows for creating a self-extracting executable without having to build a reference machine and tracking all the changes like most repackaging solutions. What this means, though, is that it's only going to be in an exe format. It's not going to be in an MSI format. So this means that you won't be repackaging these apps with 7-Zip and then deploying them through Intune, because Intune will only allow you to deploy a single file MSI directly to a Windows device. It'll also allow you to deploy Windows Store apps, but for the purposes of this video, we won't be deploying these EXEs to or through Microsoft Intune. Now there are some considerations when dealing with provisioning packages specifically, and that is with provisioning packages, they have a 30-minute timeout. And if you have multiple large applications that might take longer than 30 minutes to install, you want to consider creating a custom image. And this is just because if you have maybe Adobe Photoshop, you have the rest of Adobe Creative Suite, you might have AutoCAD, these really large, complex applications that take quite a while to install. Also, you might have slower hardware. If that's the case, your provisioning package might sit there and spin for a really long time saying that it's installing the package. But after a while, it may just time out after 30 minutes. So in this case, you might actually want to create a custom image, and in that custom image, put your applications in it, and then sysprep it, and then allow it to boot to the out-of-box experience. And then you still can provision that device with a provisioning package. It's just that your applications are already built into the image. So you don't have to wait for those applications to install. The device then can be enrolled into Azure AD and Microsoft Intune and still be managed from the cloud. It's just that you had to create your own custom image because you had really large applications in order to just get around the 30-minute timeout. And then also know that this is only one method. There are countless others to repackaging your apps. In the future, though, we could see better methods natively either in Microsoft Intune and Windows Configuration Designer, or we can see both. So just know that right now, today, we have to, just to make things easier for these complex installers, we have to repackage them some way, whether it's using 7-zip like I'm about to show, or whether you're using Admin Studio, or whether you're using any of the various other solutions that are out there. You have options. So now it's time for us to repackage our application. In this case, we are going to be repackaging Office 365 Pro Plus Click to Run. Now, this isn't the most efficient way of dealing with Office 365 Pro Plus. However, because Office 365 Pro Plus the installation is really small, it's really just two files, a setup.exe and a configuration.xml. This really makes it easy to show how we can combine both of these into a single self-extracting executable to deploy silently through Windows Configuration Designer. The better alternative to deploying Office 365 Click to Run is actually using the Office Install Toolkit, which I will create a separate video on the most efficient way of deploying Office 365. But just know that in this demo example, the application is for the most part irrelevant. If you have a 1 gig application that has quite a bit of files and folders, this process works just the same as if it only has just a couple of files. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get our installation media. So our installation media, again in this case, is going to be Office 365 Click to Run. So here I'm going to download the Office deployment tool. And the deployment tool will take just a few minutes here to grab. Okay, so in our Office 365 Pro Plus folder, we have a setup executable and we have a configuration.xml file. What we're going to do is we're going to take these files and we're going to create a self-extracting executable via 7-zip. So the next step is to download 7-zip. And I'm going to use the 16.4.04 installation. They have a 17.0 beta, which I think works just fine, but I'm going to use the latest supported version. And then I also need to download the LZMA SDK. And this I'm also going to take the 16.04 release. and I'm going to save this file into my ctemp folder. Okay, so the next step here is to extract the LZMA 1604 SDK so we can get access to the files that we need out of it to compress our Office 365 Pro Plus installation. So I'm going to right-click on LZMA 1604, select 7-zip, and then select Extract Files. And then in the Extract To folder, I'm just going to leave this all default ctemp. It's going to go into the LZMA 1604 folder. If we drill into the LZMA 1604 folder, we're going to see a number of different folders in here, two of which are important to us. The first is the doc folder. The doc folder will show you the different README files, if you will, for the different components. What we're most concerned about is this installer.txt. Now, if you want to get some background on exactly what the SDK does in terms of compressing your package into a self-extracting exe, this file contains all that information. So you can spend some time reading through this process if you wish. However, I'm just going to show you exactly what this file says. The next file that's important to us is in this bin folder, and it is the 7zsd.sfx file. This is the file that we are going to use that helps us create that self-extracting executable. So now that LZMA is installed and 7-zip is also installed, we're almost ready to compress both the setup exe and the configuration XML. However, we need to customize the configuration XML. Otherwise, if we combine these together, create our self-extracting exe, it won't actually install silently. So when we right-click on the configuration XML and we go to Edit, Notepad will open and it will give you the sample XML that comes directly from the Office Deployment Toolkit. Now in here we see the Office Client Edition of 32-bit and the channel of current. So this is the current branch 32-bit installation of Office, is what will be installed. We also see that it's Pro Plus Retail, language is English. Additional product ID is Visio Pro Retail, also in English. And then we also have some additional options down here, such as enabling the Office 365 click-to-run updates for the current channel. And there is the display level of none and accepting the EULA of true, as well as the auto-activate property. So now these properties are all disabled by default, so you can just easily delete the comments out of the brackets here. And once these are deleted, these options are now applicable. Now, if you want to do some more additional customization to the XML file, you can do so through the Office Click-to-Run Configuration XML editor. So if you just do a search for Office Click-to-Run Configuration Editor, or if you go to this officedev.github.io location, you will end up at this XML page to create your own custom XML file. It's very simple. Just specify the options that you want. So in this case, you can do Office 365 Pro Plus, Office 365 for Business, various other options here. You can do single installers for Skype for Business or for Project or Visio, as well as the different edition types, what channel, whether you want to be on the current or the deferred channel for Office updates, and any additional language, version, build, various different settings that you want. When you are done making your changes, you just hit save, and then it will create in the right-hand side a XML file that you can use to deploy to your devices. But in our case, we don't really need to do that. The XML that comes with Office is just fine. We can just take out the commented lines, and we can use this XML to get a silent installation of Office 365 Pro Plus. So we'll save that. And now we need to select both files, right-click, 7-zip, and add to Office 365 Pro Plus 7z. And now that we have the Office 365 Pro Plus files zipped, the next step is to copy over the 7zsd.sfx file that I was showing you earlier. So if we go to LZMA 1604, go to bin, and 7zsd.sfx, we'll copy this right into our Office 365 Pro Plus folder. And then the next step is to create a configuration text file. And this configuration text file is what is going to tell 7-zip how to install after it does the extraction of the file. So I'm going to name this config.text. And then inside of this, I'm going to paste in what we need for the installation. So for the installation, the config.txt file has to be in a specific format. If you go back to the installer.txt file I was showing you earlier, if we go into LZMA under doc and go to installer.txt, we're essentially using the config file examples directly from here. So for Office Pro Plus, we're just going to run setup.exe and then /configure and then use the configuration XML file. For the title and the begin prompt, you can customize this for whatever the application it is that you're running. Now, you might also have an MSI file, and if you are using an MSI file instead of a setup.exe, for the most part, it's pretty much the same process. It's just that with the MSIs, we instead call MSI exec and then have a /i and then the name of the MSI, and we pass a /qn/no restart. In this case, then, we will use MSI exec to install the MSI, even though it's packaged up as a self-extracting executable. But for the purposes of what we're doing here with Office 365, we'll just take that out and save the config.txt file. So now that we have our files in our Office 365 folder, the next step is to create the self-extracting exe. And in order to do that, we run a copy job from the command prompt. So let's type in cmd and hit enter to open the command prompt, and then navigate to our temp directory, /temp. And the command that we need to run it's a copy command that will copy all of our files into O365 Pro Plus installer.exe. I just need to modify this to include the correct file. So we have our 7zsd.sfx, we have our config.txt file, and then we have our Office 365 pp.7z file. And all of these will compress down into a single O365 pp installer.exe file. So let's hit enter. And then now we see that we have Office 365 installer.exe in our folder here. And now we're ready to test this file to install it and just validate that it installs silently. So before we do that, let me just take a snapshot of this virtual machine. And then let's go ahead and double click and run, or actually, instead of double clicking, in order to install these silently, you actually need to do, this from the command prompt and pass a -y command. Let's actually do this as an administrator. So in order to install this silently, you need to run Office 365 Pro Plus Installer.exe -y. Now just know while this is installing, this can take a few minutes to install because this is actually going out to the internet to download the content for Office 365 Pro Plus, because the installer, as you've noticed, the setup exe is only about 4 megs. So this definitely isn't the full installation. So this can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, maybe if not longer, depending on your internet bandwidth and the speed of your machine, in order to get Office installed. So if it just sits for a while, don't be alarmed. But this installation now has completed, and if we go to the Start menu, we'll see that we have Visio, we have Word, and if we expand, we'll see the rest of the Office installation files. Now that we know that the application installed successfully, the next step is to integrate it into a provisioning package, and in order to do that, we need to download the Windows Configuration Designer. So if we go to the Windows Store and we do a search here for Windows Configuration Designer, we'll see that the application is here, and I've already pre-installed it on this device, but if you hadn't installed it yet, you can just go search, find it, and install it directly from the Windows Store. So what I want to do now is I want to take this Provision Desktop Devices wizard, I want to run this, and we're going to go through this wizard to integrate the application and also get our Azure Active Directory bulk enrollment token. So I'm going to give my project a name, and then I'm going to run through the wizard. And the first step here is to give the device a name. So I'll just call this blue, and then I'm going to use the rand variable and put 5 random characters at the end of the name. I also have the option here to configure shared devices. I can configure to remove pre-installed software, but I'm not going to do either of those right now. For devices on my network, I can type in my network SID. In this case, since I'm using virtual machines, I do not need to set this option. And then for the enrollment of the device, I want to enroll into Azure Active Directory, and I want to get a bulk enrollment token. Okay, now that I have my bulk enrollment token, I want to add my application. So for the command line arguments for the application, we just want to make sure that cmd/c and the executable is listed, and then we need to just add a -y. It's really important that you have cmd/c in front of this, because if you don't, then you might find that your application is going to fail its installation. I don't have any of these other options aren't necessary for us to install this app, so I'm going to click Add. And then click on, just go through the rest of the wizard, click on Finish, and then create the package. So now that the package is created, I'm ready to deploy this package and use this to onboard a device. So let's click on the link and grab our provisioning package. So when we go into the folder that the provisioning package is created in, we'll see that we have a demo provisioning package or a demo.ppkg file. And this is the only file you need out of here. This file is what contains your Azure Active Directory bulk enrollment token, any of the various options that you set within the configuration designer, as well as the application payload that you imported during the wizard. So what you want to do is take this and copy this to a USB stick, and then during the out-of-box experience for the device that you're trying to provision, put the USB stick into the device and it will consume this provisioning package. So when you first boot up a device, during the out-of-box experience with a Windows 10 Creators Update device or Windows 10 1703, you will come to a screen that looks like this, that asks you to select the region. Instead of going through the out-of-box experience wizard, all you need to do is put your USB stick in when you see this screen. However, I'm using a virtual machine here, and in order for me to go through that process, I actually have to do a key press in order for this to work. So if I hit the Windows key 5 times, I get this dialog box that comes up asking me if I want to set my PC up with the provisioning package that's associated with this virtual machine. So I'm just going to hit setup, and then this goes through the installation of the provisioning package. Now, because it's installing Office, this installation will take quite a while. Could take about 10 minutes, just depends on how fast your device is. And now the installation is done of the provisioning package, we are now able to log on to our machine here with our Azure Active Directory credentials. And now we're at the desktop of the machine, and if we open the Start menu, we will see that we have our Office applications installed, Access and Excel. You'll also notice that a lot of other applications are here as well. 7-Zip, this is actually coming down from Microsoft Intune. And then we also have a number of web applications that have come as well. So there's Classroom, CodeMonkey, and some Windows Store apps. Duolingo, Flashcards Pro, Fresh Paint, and Minecraft Education Edition, amongst others. So this concludes the demo of how to repackage complex installers for use with Windows Configuration Designer.